I am your host for the week, Russell Glasser, and with me today is Don Baker.
Hey, good to be here.
Today is Sunday, February 15th. We are a live public access call-in show offering atheists in the Austin area the opportunity to interact with the public and vice versa, answering questions, discussing relevant topics, and correcting many of the misperceptions about who we are and what we do and don't believe.
We're so misunderstood.
Always. The Atheist Experience is sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. You can find out more by visiting us at www.atheist-community.org. When you do, be sure to check out the Frequently Asked Questions page for answers to the questions that we always hear every single week until we're sick of them. Not that we are sick of you.
We'll answer them anyway.
Yes. Audio and video from this program are available at our website. You can visit www.atheist-experience.com, click on Archive, and you'll find a list of programs including links to both audio and video downloads. The video is provided by Google Video for now. Google Video is actually being shut down, and we don't know yet what we're doing, but don't worry, we're working on it. You can also view shorter clips at YouTube, and these are all uploaded by fans. Also, you can stream the show live as it happens by going to atheist-experience.com and just hunt around on the page for the streaming link, because the actual link is too long for me to read on the air usefully. In addition to this program, the ACA also sponsors a bi-weekly internet audio podcast called The Nonprofits. Visit www.nonprofitsradio.com, that's P-R-O-P-H-E-T-S, for more information. We are on every other week normally, but we weren't on 2 weeks ago when we should have been. So to make up for it, we were on yesterday, and we will be on again next Saturday. Okay? Got it? Tune in next Saturday. In addition to our lectures, television programs, and podcasts, the ACA hosts a number of regular social events, including Atheist Happy Hour every Thursday, beginning at around 7 p.m. at the Dog and Duck Pub, located at the corner of 17th and Guadalupe. Weekly meetings are every Sunday at Romeo's on Barton Springs Road, except for the first Sunday of the month, when we host our lecture series at the Austin History Center, located at the corner of 9th and Guadalupe. There is no lecture in March that I have heard about yet, so stay paying attention to the website and the show for more details. If you enjoyed this show, you can join us for dinner afterwards at Threadgill's in South Austin, 301 West Riverside Drive at Barton Springs Road, just south of downtown. We get there around 6:30 and stick around until whenever we feel like. If you would like to call the show today, but you don't manage to get in, or if you're just shy and don't want to talk on the air, then you can go instead and email tv@atheist-community.org, and we will try to get to your email, although last time I checked we were getting like 20 to 30 emails a week there, a day. So it's
a lot of volume, yeah.
Yes, high volume. There's like, what would you say, like 10 of us who actually look at it and respond if the news
some of us are getting overwhelmed, but yeah, the TV folks, both in front of the screen and behind the screen, are watching, and we do read everything, and we do try to respond to many of them.
Yeah. So. We're really popular on that internet thing, which brings me to my next usual point, which is that we love you viewers around the world, but we try to save some of the phone lines for people who are either local to Austin or likely to promote interesting conversation, by which we mean want to argue with us. So if you want to call and tell us I'm from some other country and I think you're great, thanks, we appreciate it, but email or try to call after the show while watching the live stream. I think that's it for the announcements, so pause bars for the people who skip ahead on the on the YouTube thing,
the
Google video.
People that look at the video of our show, yes. Right, and they don't want to hear the announcements.
So what's going on today, Don?
Well, I brought in a topic today. You know, Russell and we're both computer scientists. We're both.
Hold on.
We had an announcement?
I wasn't paying attention to the announcements from the studio, but
It was flashing madly.
first Sunday of this month, instead of a lecture in March, first Sunday of March, we'll be at Romeo's, which is our normal meeting place, for a membership meeting. So as many of you ACA people as can get there should.
And we'll have more on that on the web.
Yes.
So I was starting to say that Russell and I are both computer scientists, and you know, I sometimes get some insights from computer science and atheism of all things. Isn't that crazy? But there's a problem in both computer science and engineering, especially, of building big systems. Right? If you can build a little prototype, a little small thing, then that's pretty easy. But building the big thing, that's hard. Right? So in computer science, we have just ginormous sites like Google and Facebook and MySpace and eBay and all these other things, and they're huge engineering challenges, and it takes a lot of smarts to make those things happen. You know, having a little simple website is relatively easy.
Last year, I took a class on software engineering, and a major difference between basically a software product and a software system is dealing with the increased complexity that has lots of things talking to each other and just tackling the same problem on a much larger scale.
Yeah, big problem. It happens in engineering disciplines too. Building a little bridge is easy. Building a real big bridge is hard, right? So let's apply this concept to religion. Does God scale up? There's a claim that God created the universe and runs it. In fact, if we have a natural disaster or some horrible thing happen, it's called an act of God, although lately that's been sort of spun as, oh, that's nature, but God does the good stuff, nature does the bad stuff.
Right, unless God is punishing us.
Right. Unless they want to spin it that way, but, you know, let's kill the infidels or give us more money, so that sort of thing. There's a claim that God has a master plan and has, you know, got it all figured out. There's a claim that God is all-knowing, which is omniscience. There's a claim that God's all-powerful, which is omnipotence. A claim that God is omnibenevolent, that He loves us and wants to take care of us. So if anybody knows how to solve the big problems, it's God. God knows how to do that, right? But when you talk to theists about their belief, they always bring up the small stuff. They always talk about how God affects them in small ways. They talk about how, I feel God in my heart, which to an atheist looks like self-delusion. Maybe you're just making that up. Some people claim that, I prayed to God and such happened, and therefore God exists. So you know, prayer in the small, if you will, for their personal problems. And I would claim that this is confirmation bias, right? That this is you know, you might pray all the time and only remember the ones you get. Getting guidance from God. Well, maybe you're really, maybe God isn't really helping you. Maybe you're really truly self-reliant on your own, and you don't really need God. There's claim of miracles, which happen to all be spin. They tend to be things that for which evidence is ambiguous, and anyway, so on. So nobody talks about the big problems, and in fact, no problem, big or small, has ever been solved by a God, because there's no evidence at all that God exists. So anyway, so we focused way too much on the small problems. I wanted to take a look at the big problems today, and the big problems, some of them, I don't know of any big problems that God solves, but the ones that God really fails to solve, I think, are the problem of evil, the systematic failure of prayer, and there's lots of problems having to do with the behavior of its followers. And in fact, there's so many of those, I'm going to separate those out. So what I'd like to do today, Russell, is a talk about the problem of evil and the systematic failure of prayer first, and then we'll take some calls.
Gotcha.
And then we'll come back and I'll talk about the behavior of followers.
Okay.
Okay? Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay. And for each one, we're going to look at what the problem is, why God should be able to solve it, why it isn't solved, and the secular explanation for why things are the way that we see them. So the problem of scale is
I assume you'll talk about why he should want to solve it also.
Well, yeah, maybe so. Yeah, motivations. Maybe he's just lazy, SOB. That's entirely possible, and we'll get into that, the problem of evil.
I mean, I saw Bruce Almighty, and he was like trying to answer all the little prayers on email, and there were millions of them, and it was like he was getting tired. And so I guess omnipotent powers aren't all they're cracked up to be.
Right. I don't know. It's cartoonish, right? It's like the more you think about these things, the less sense they make, right? How can you answer all these prayers that are coming in? So the problem of scale is yet another earthly reason why we shouldn't be believing in God. So that's kind of the punchline of today's show. So the problem of evil. There's a quote from Epicurus, who lived 341 to 271 BCE, or before the Common Era, or BC if you're a Christian, before Christ. And he was a pretty smart guy, hats off to Epicurus. He says, is God willing to prevent evil and not able? Then he is impotent. If he is able but not willing, then he is malevolent. So he's a bad guy. If he's both able and willing, then whence come evil? So this was the original statement of the problem of evil. Mm-hmm. It's been around longer than, since Jesus was a candy bar in his father's back pocket.
Never heard that analogy.
Anyway, but this ancient problem of evil has never been properly addressed. We have, God should be able to create a universe without problems if he has these traits. And this is a really sort of basic atheism 101 thing that we like to bring up, is the problem of evil, right? I mean, that's very basic stuff. So
should I play devil's advocate and
if you
tell
want.
you what a theist would say?
Well, there's this silly rationalization. There's this theodicy.
There are a bunch of them.
There's a bunch of them. But the big one is, God gave you free will, and the universe would be worse somehow if you didn't have free will, and right?
Yeah, there's that, and there's also. Let me see. God makes bad stuff happen to test people. Like Richard Dawkins mentions in The God Delusion that there's this theodicy promoter who says that actually the Holocaust was there to make the rest of the Jews stronger. By having to deal with these 6 million people who died.
John Hagee down in San Antonio says the Holocaust was there to drive the Jews to Israel. Mm-hmm. So that was of course, right. That's how he makes his money.
And I was actually talking about this passage on the blog, the Atheist Experience blog, atheistexperience.blogspot.com, this past week, where the person said that Richard Dawkins didn't really argue against that.
Oh, I see.
And I mean, that argument is so lame.
It is. It's
that
very
really, there's not a lot you can say about it except, boy, that sucks.
Well, it's just so simple-minded. It's like, if something good happens, we'll say, that God did that, and something bad happens, God's testing you, or whatever, right?
Right,
so
because so often, I mean, we ask, like, what is, how do you know there's a God? What's your evidence? And they'll say, look at all the wonderful stuff in the world. That couldn't have gotten here without a God. Mm-hmm. But when you bring up something like the Holocaust, it's not really his fault.
Okay, well, back to the problem of evil. I mean, there's a lot of diversions. A lot of people have tried to patch this thing up, right? This problem of evil, I think, is one of the true sort of great atheist lines of reasoning that just destroy a lot of religious belief. And they've been trying to patch this and band-aid it for years and years. And you've hit on some of these things, and they're just as lame as the original thing. In reality, evil is the name we give our potential to do harm to others. I mean, if you're blaming someone as evil, it means that they have the potential to do harm, and they're doing harm to other people. It's that simple. It's not some boogeyman with red horns and red skin and cloven hooves and all that crazy stuff. But there are also other evils which are natural and don't involve God. They're things like Ebola, or cancer, or these things that cause people harm and cause people, pain and suffering and these sorts of things. Anyway, there's clearly no God running things because we have all these evil things. And if God really wanted to fix these things, he could. But when something good happens, as I said, people are sure happy to steal credit for God. I mean, we saw this on on this plane flight that went down in the Hudson.
Oh, yes, right.
You know,
it was a miracle.
It was a miracle. God was looking out for them, and it's just insane because if God was really looking out for them, he would have made sure the geese never got in the engines in the first place.
Right. Or as I don't remember, I think it was Matt who said that a miracle would be if the geese fly right through the engines and
reassemble themselves.
A little plate of pâté drops on the lap of every passenger.
Pâté foie gras. Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good. Or 9/11, right after the planes hit, there, down on the wreckage there was 2 pieces of metal that made a cross, and somebody got all excited about that. It's like, oh, Jesus was there. It just defies my imagination.
Like thousands of people died, but at least these metal bars lined up across one another.
It's a miracle.
That's amazing.
Okay, let's talk about the systematic failure of prayer. This is another thing. Well, if there's a God sitting around, maybe he just maybe he's a little lazy. Maybe he needs a reminder that these things over here need fixing. They're not quite working very well. And people supposedly can pray to God and tell him about his neglected duties. And in fact, the Bible even confirms that. Matthew 17:20, Jesus says, "For truly I say unto you, if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed," a little bit of faith, you will say to this mountain, "Move from here to there, and I will move, and nothing will be impossible for you." Nothing. Isn't that powerful? Boy, just a little bit of faith, a little bit of prayer, and anything you want to happen.
I haven't heard of any mountains moving. No. I guess the conclusion is that either there is no one in the world who had faith the size of a grain of a mustard seed.
It's the smallest seed, according to Jesus.
Or they just didn't see any mountains that needed moving.
Right. Well, surely, the settlers of the West would have liked to have, had the mountains part so
that would have been
explore the West Coast.
But, they were all atheists. No wonder Christians feel so persecuted.
Mormons or something. Mormons never made it over the mountains, did they? Anyway, I guess they did. Yeah, Utah's on the other side. Anyway, somehow they found a way.
Eventually.
There's another one, Matthew 18:19. Jesus says, "Again I say unto you, if 2 of you agree on the earth about anything they ask, it will be done for them by my Father in heaven. For when there are 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am in the midst of them." So
I got a problem with that.
Me too.
Football games, anyone?
Football games. You have people on both sides praying for opposite things.
Can God
do cancel
contradictory things? Because presumably that both sides are praying. Or actually, people always bring up
God's
football games.
I have both teams win.
Yeah, I have a better example that even more is an issue of scale. The stock market.
Oh, yeah?
There are millions of transactions happening all the time, every day. And one person making money depends on another person losing money. That must be a logistical nightmare for God if people are praying over the stock market.
Right. How do you keep everybody at zero sum and all that? Right. So from that last quote where we have, if 2 or 3 of you come together and pray in my name, it'll come true. The only thing I can think about that is, boy, Christians surely must be very selfish, right? Because we have all this evil in the world, all this, famine and disease and persecution and such, and if only 2 of them would get together and solve, they could solve the problem. Or why do we need a national defense system? Why not just have 2 or 3 Christians, pray and say, hey, we're going to put a protective shield around the United States.
Yeah, and plus,
it'd be a lot cheaper.
How many people have told us that they would pray for us to change our minds?
That's right. That's right. We get that all the time. We'll pray for you.
Hasn't worked so far.
It's not working too well. So, what about Christians who pray for their own, who are starving to death? Groups of Christians who want not to be victims. What about those folks? Well, the spin in this case is that these people don't believe enough, that they need more Christianity, and this is sort of a blame the victim sort of thing, right? If you're a Christian and you don't get what you want, it's because you're not good enough for God's word, and this is the basis of the prosperity gospel, right? Where God blesses the rich And if you're poor, you don't believe it's good enough. And this is the basis of our faith-based initiatives, by the way, this same idea that if people are in trouble or if they're in jail or if they need help, they need more, it's because they don't have enough religion in their lives. So does Andrea Yates, who drowned her 5 kids in Houston, does she need more religion, you think? Do you think that would help the situation?
I don't know. I guess she was an atheist.
No. No. Anyway.
No, neither was Susan Smith, who also did the same thing. In fact, it's gotten to the point where anytime I see a headline that says somebody killed their kids, I'm like, how far will we go before we get to the Christian angle? And I'm never disappointed.
Yeah, it's shocking. It's shocking. There always seems to be a religious motivation. So getting back to prayer, in reality, nothing fails like prayer. I mean, we have a little phrase like that, nothing fails like prayer. When there's been controlled studies, in fact, there's been one pretty recently, about 2 years ago from the Templeton Foundation, that was a study of intercessory prayer where people were praying for the benefit of some people in the hospital. And the study found, and this was funded by a kind of religious-friendly organization. Study found that there wasn't any positive benefit to this, and in fact, the only time that there has been positive benefit shown for the person being prayed about is when the study has been found to be fraudulent. So that tells you a lot that the people want there to be studies like this, and they're willing to make them fraudulent. There is a benefit, it turns out, to the prayer. But it's the same benefit you'd get from meditation or just talking, just slowing down and thinking about, the big picture for a minute or two.
I'm not sure that you can categorically say that all studies about prayer have failed, because if you look at it in a meta sense, the test group that they're going to look at, some of them will be slightly above average, some of them will slightly be below average, and so if you take like hundreds of studies, then you will wind up finding a few studies where it looked like more people got better than you would expect from random chance. I mean, that's just the way the nature of statistical
studies. It's analogous to if you throw darts randomly, at some point you're going to hit something. And so it's called the sharpshooter's fallacy, where if you're allowed to circle after the fact where you meant the dart to go, then it looks like you're a pretty good shot. It's sort of like that. So nothing fails like prayer. Nobody seems to be able to talk to God, and so they're and in fact, believers themselves don't really believe that they can talk to God. I mean, if when do you find true believers in hospitals, right? If they were true believers, they'd go to their minister, they'd go pray, and they'd have their disease cured.
Christian scientists.
They
don't believe in medicine,
and I'm willing to bet that their longevity is quite a bit lower than.
So you should do a study on that.
This is kind of almost a mean thing to say, but I had an aunt who was a Christian scientist until she got really sick, and then she kicked that to the curb because she wanted to live, and clearly that wasn't going to do it. And I mentioned the national defense thing. If we really believed that prayer was going to work, we would use it for our national defense instead of a way to
Didn't
send money.
Jerry Falwell or Pat Robertson or both used to talk about how 9/11 happened because God took his shield of protection away from the United States because he was so ticked off.
Send them more money to help restore that shield.
Right.
Yep.
So I mean, it would certainly be a lot cheaper if we eliminated our Department of Defense. It would probably deal with all our budget problems.
Yeah, it would save us a lot of money.
We could rely on God's magical shield of protection. Oh, I forgot. It's our fault. Right. That doesn't work anymore.
Right. It's those atheists that are causing all sorts of problems.
Yeah. Only I thought that people just had to have the faith of a mustard seed. I mean, how weak is God if a minority like us, it's 15% if it's non-believers, but it's like 5% if you're talking about the serious atheists, who I assume are the ones that are causing the problem. How weak is God if he needs unanimity to maintain his shield? I mean, you would think that the power of the prayers could divert the engines or something to, you know, all divert all power to the forward shields or something.
Right.
God just, you know, atheists, I guess, were like kryptonite to God.
Right. Well, we've teased in the past about how gays must have some sort of protective shield. Because,
Yes, right.
You know,
Because
when the hurricane hit New Orleans, you know, the really awful part, the French Quarter ended up surviving pretty well, mostly because it was on high ground. But
Science.
But you know, the people are happy to spin that as, you know, God's wrath against those evil homosexuals. Anyway, pretty silly stuff. You want to take some calls?
Okay.
Do we have a call?
We've got a call. I've been seeing the lights blinking on and off, which means our call screeners are hard at work. But we're going to go ahead and take AJ. AJ, are you there?
Yep, I am here. Yeah, God's skill up right to me. I guess like prepared will work. I've been wondering because I need a netbook for education. I should be able to.
You need a what for education? You need a what for education?
Netbook. It's like a smaller kind of laptop.
Oh, uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
And according to the Bible, there was a woman who needed rent money and food for her kids, and I think Abraham went to her and told her to pray, and then she had like infinite oil in a little jar, which she used to make food and sell for rent.
Okay.
So I'm thinking if someone can get infinite fossil fuel in a pot o' holding, it should be nothing to get me a $300 netbook.
There you go. There you go.
would think,
Have you
right?
tried praying?
Yes.
Did it work?
No. I give it yet another shot, even though I'm an atheist, and decided to say, okay, Jesus, let's give this another shot.
I think you're praying too specifically.
Okay.
If you get a lot
It's
vaguer
obviously your fault.
and say,
Yeah.
I would like something to happen, you might find $10 in the street here and there that you could credit to God, and then that
if you
would
wait
go
long
there.
enough, then you'll have enough money, or the thing will be obsolete and you won't need it anymore.
Right.
Could I give could I pick multiple brands and websites to order from? Like, yeah, just pick any one of these, God, because you know, you can't decide.
You know, somebody ought to look into whether that jar of infinite oil is still around. Because,
Oh, that'd be nice. That'd be useful.
That's right. If it's
actually.
infinite, it should still be
seems
around.
to me that you could devise some kind of machine that could extract the oil from that stuff on a
That'd be
regular
so
basis.
useful for current
It
American
would,
oil
yeah, because
society.
it would solve the energy crisis.
Okay. But the oil was probably something like olive oil, not.
Yeah,
But,
well,
but you can still
Even
burn it.
so, I mean, you can
Yeah,
make biodiesel
ethanol.
out of olive
There
oil,
you go.
right?
There you go.
I mean, the problem with biodiesel is it costs more to grow it than in
Yeah.
energy
It's
terms
infinite.
than the energy you actually get out of it. But if you had even an infinite jar of olive oil, that would really
Right.
be
And it could be a
helpful.
small infinite march.
We should get to the president about this immediately.
Is
that all?
Great idea.
And another thing, before I forget, not quite on subject, I was talking to what turned out to be a Muslim on YouTube, but he didn't really specify. He was defending Christianity because apparently the Bible says, preaches nothing but good and love. And apparently he never read Deuteronomy.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of scary stuff in there if you
Oh,
poke
yeah.
around.
That's the
In
funny
fact,
thing.
I'd
Go
like
on.
to plug a blog, which is kafirgirl.blogspot.com. It's an ex-Muslim who goes through and reads the Quran and just points out all the crazy stuff in it.
Oh, I had to find that then, yeah.
Yeah, that's Kafir.
All right. That's one more funny thing is whenever I'm reading the Bible in public, just picking it apart using the Bible itself, like they'll say God is everywhere, and then he'll compact down into a person and wrestle someone in the very next sentence. And then someone talks to me like, "Is that strengthening your faith?" Like, no, I'm an atheist. And they're like, "Well, why not?" I'm like, I point out something in the Bible, like, "You're bashing the Bible." I'm like, no, I'm reading the Bible. It's not. If I wanted to bash it, you'd find out.
When people get cornered, they often play the persecution card of.
Oh yeah.
Right. Or the, well, you better hope you're right card.
Right,
That's
which is kind of a veiled threat sort of thing.
Yes.
Right. Okay, Jake. Well, thanks for calling.
No problem.
Okay.
All right.
Take care.
Talk to you later. Bye.
All right, night.
Yeah. Well, it's.
I guess-
so many of these things are just laughable. you
Yeah,
know,
pretty much.
So. We got another call or not?
No, actually,
Okay.
we have some calls. Maybe I was too strict with the call screen.
Did you want to do one of your articles and then we can come back?
Yeah, I can throw
That way I'm
something
not
out there.
talking all the time.
Sure.
'Cause I'm sure people get tired of
I
listening to
have
me.
been asked by somebody. I'm not sure if she wants me to identify her. Okay, but she's a She's a professor at Oklahoma University. She says. Dawkins is speaking at OU on March 6th, and someone involved in event organization contacted me several weeks ago looking for student volunteers for the event. She couldn't find an active atheist student group at OU, but our SSA, of which I am I won't detail that.
Don't read it all.
Yeah. Sorry,
Give the gist
I'm
of it.
giving too much details. Well, anyway, the event has been moved from a 1,000-seat venue to a 3,000-seat venue because there were too many people who want to see Richard Dawkins talk.
is a fairly famous zoologist and
Yes.
evolutionary biologist who's done a great job of popularizing those fields in books like The Selfish Gene and the Extended Phenotype.
Yeah, I
and-
knew about him as an evolution person way before
Yeah,
he
and
actually
he's a
became
great writer, and more lately he's
spearhead for
become kind of
atheism.
a real big advocate for atheism. So
Right.
he's become kind of famous in two areas, and he's a very popular speaker. He came here to Austin. So in OU, what do they having problems with there?
Well, okay, so they got the 3,000-seat venue, but the problem is basically that when it was 1,000 seats, they were selling tickets. Or not selling, they were
giving out
giving
tickets.
away tickets so that people would know in advance whether they would be able to get in because it's going to be overcrowded. Now that they've moved it to 3,000, 3,500 people, there's still way too many people who want to go, but they're not giving out tickets anymore. This person who wrote me thinks that it's some kind of pettiness on the part of the administrators. I don't have a comment about that, but basically there's going to be a lot of angry people standing in line for hours and not getting in.
Yeah.
So
here in our Austin thing, we had people come from way out of state coming down and you don't
Right.
want to be doing that unless you know you have a seat.
yeah, definitely.
Is it clear that it's an atheist issue, or whether it's just typical university administration?
Don't know, but the real
snafus?
purpose here is a call to action. If you are a student near OU, then they would like you to volunteer to help with the lines. And so I guess if you just email tv@atheist-community.org and say, I'm a student and would like to help, I'll go ahead and forward that to our friend.
Yeah. So Richard Dawkins is kind of doing a national tour and hitting a lot of cities, and I guess he's promoting some of his books. He's written quite a number of books.
Right? Nothing new lately as far as I know.
Nothing new lately, but he's definitely a good guy. You have anything else?
Well, we have a caller now.
We have a caller. Okay.
This is Mark from Ohio. Mark,
Hi, guys.
how are you?
Not too bad, guys.
All right.
Good.
I guess, comment, really. I'm a skeptic, non-believer, kind of raised in, obviously, the U.S., where we have, but my wife's been wanting me to read the Bible, and I go several times, never really been able to. I get to like Job, and I can't read any further. I get disgusted. I decided to. I've been watching live. It seems like every show you guys
It does
go
get a
on
little
for
dull
like
around
05.
the time of all those begats.
Yeah. But I basically came to the question, should I read? And I've been doing a lot of research in various different places, and probably for both good and bad reasons. I had a little bit of an epiphany yesterday, and I want to just run this by you guys. As far as like the Trinity and the Judeo-Christian tradition, if we think of God the Father as an anthropomorphization of reality, creation. There are things here. We know things are here. Not Magic Man in the sky who creates things, but just the idea that reality is real. And if we look at the God the Spirit as in, anthropomorphized, Sophia, Isis, the whole idea of wisdom. And then we look at, God the Son as actually the physical sun that rises every day. It kind of, putting in that context, kind of makes me see that our ancestors are trying to tell us something. Reality is real. If we ignore the knowledge and experience that we get by living every day in our sciences and everything else, and we stick to the dull, down by old men, that we miss the point. You know, we should use our knowledge and experience to further ourselves. And as long as the sun comes up every day, and we can grow our food, and we can have our children, we aren't personally getting eternal life, but we are, in essence, sending children down.
I have to say, I think you're being way too generous to those people. I understand that you're going to enormous lengths to say that these were actually very clever and savvy and scientific people rather than a bunch of ignorant sheep herders.
No, I think they were ignorant sheep herders.
I think the ignorant sheep herders interpretation is the easier one.
Yeah, it is. It is. I do think they were ignorant sheep herders, but I think with the various religions, actually, I saw something on the back and forth between like astrology and the religions, and I understand the screener told me that a lot of that stuff's been disproven, and that's not there.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what led me into that. That we should just
you hear this
learn about everything, and not take it as dogmatic fact, but just try to experience.
Well, you hear a common complaint among, I think, people who are very studied in religion is that I guess for the original prophets and things, it was sort of look at where I'm pointing and not at my finger. And a lot of people, I think, end up taking a lot of these things very literally. And maybe there is some wisdom there, but you know, my answer to that is, why not let's pull that wisdom out and separate it from the baggage that goes along with it, and just focus on the wisdom itself.
I think the issue here is that the Bible doesn't have any special claim to being profound.
Exactly. That's kind of my point.
I mean, people elevate the Bible as something that you should pay special attention to just because it's the Bible. And if they don't hold with the whole literal interpretation thing, like, oh yeah, of course God didn't literally create the earth in 6 days and stuff, they still say, but you know, there's a lot of wisdom in the Bible that's hidden in there. And I'm like, there's a lot of wisdom in a lot of books. I don't see why I should go through the effort
read a whole bunch of others too.
Of digging through the Bible for the very, very small nuggets of wisdom buried in there, when there are a lot of better books than the Bible to base your wisdom on.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I think one of my points that I would like to make is, in the Christians, a way that you could explain this to them, that when denying, if we anthropomorphize these ideas in the ways that we do, it's the rejection of knowledge into just the Bible that is actually the rejection of the Spirit.
Okay, well,
it's not a concept. We should learn everything from everywhere and not stick to the Bible.
Yeah, so I think we're in violent agreement. And I'm going to have to move on to the next caller, but thanks for calling, Mark. Bye. How many more do you want to take before we go on?
Let's take one more, and then I'll jump into my next.
We're going to talk to Susan in New York. Hello, Susan.
Hi. I'm sorry, I can't hear the volume very well.
Okay.
Now, but
they can fix it.
Okay, that's good. So, Russell, I've been enjoying your posts on the blog about debating creationists and
thanks for the free plug.
Atheist and theist debating in general.
Yeah.
So I had a thought about a sort of a related topic.
Hold on. Stop talking for a second. We're having the usual problem with the speaker in the studios, but somebody is trying to fix that for us.
Okay.
Okay, I'll wait.
Well,
trying.
While they're fixing that, you know, Russell.
Stay on the line.
Please stay on the line. We're having a little problem.
Yeah, I can plug those posts though.
Well, I was going to say you can plug the posts, and maybe you can plug your new effort to.
I'm not sure that we want to make that terribly public yet. But I've been doing a lot of reading lately basically listening to debates and reading a lot of written debates, and coming to the conclusion that there are a lot of atheists out there who aren't really that good at debating, and you know that includes Richard Dawkins, God love him.
Well, religious debates tend to be different than straight debates, right? Because there tend to be some games and tricks that go on.
Right.
And
Eugenie Scott wrote of this very eloquently. If you go to talkorigins.org, there's an article called Creationists and the Globetrotters, I think, where she argues that scientists shouldn't debate creationists because
they're like the Harlem Globetrotters,
yes, it
right?
makes the scientists look silly and doesn't really gain them anything. I have been writing a series of posts lately about how I think that basically there should be more atheists getting out there debating religious people, just not necessarily scientists. People who don't have any particular credibility to confer, because I don't think that the creationists are worth it. I think that these religion versus atheism debates tend to be basically showmanship. There's
a lot of that,
They're basically performance art. And I think it would be a good idea to get more people out there who are good at performance art rather than science. As a response to that.
Well, who are at least aware that that's where the game is.
Yes,
right. Because that's what's going on.
Yeah, somebody like Penn Jillette, for instance, or I've heard several stage magicians, James Randi is another one, say that scientists are actually not very good at debunking things because they're used to dealing with honest people.
Right.
And whereas a magician is used to dealing with
if they get
fraud.
somebody who's good, who's playing games, right?
And so somebody whose basically job is to go out there and
make their side look good, right?
Make the other side look ridiculous. Seems to be more the way to go. So we're still having problems with the speaker. Luckily, we anticipated this week, and we have a lot of backup material if we need it.
One or two.
Let's keep Susan on the line, and there might be another technical solution on the way.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I guess
maybe what I'll do is I'll continue on with my material.
Yeah.
We were talking about why doesn't God scale up, and in the past, previously I talked about some of the problems about God himself, the claims about God and the behavior of God, and well, what about the behavior of God's followers? If God can talk to his followers and tell them what to do, then you should be able to see God's influence in the behavior of the followers, right? God can direct the faithful by prayer, and they're under the power of the Holy Spirit if they believe. Then as a group, Christian, Jews, and Muslims should generally move in the same direction and agree on everything, right?
you would think.
You would think, yeah. Because certainly God, there's only one God. He's not like schizophrenic and telling everybody different things. You'd think. Okay. And furthermore, God created humans, right? If you create a software system, you kind of know how it behaves. Or if you create a subroutine and you create something to call it, that call works all the time. God created the humans. He created should be able to talk to us. No problem. But we have this problem. We have humans creating thousands of gods. There's so many different gods, so many different religions. And then even within the single big set of religions, which I'm talking about, Islam and Christianity and Judaism, they all worship the same God, believe it or not. Most people don't realize it's the God of Abraham.
Some of them would tell you otherwise.
Some of them would tell me otherwise. They'd be wrong, right? They all worship the God of Abraham. Did the gods split? I don't see how this happened. So even within these...
But something that keeps coming up for me when they say that, of course those Muslims are just silly or evil or whatever, is you say that I should have faith based on these arguments, but how do I pick your faith over the faith of the Muslims? How do I know that what I should have faith in is not their thing?
Absolutely.
There's not really a good way to
why
distinguish.
believe in Catholicism when there's, Baptists running around or that sort of thing. So we have, even within Christianity, we have thousands of sects. So even within the one supposedly coherent religion, we have this huge problem of getting your story straight. And if you take a look at any particular issue that's kind of big and messy, like the Iraq War, you don't have people coming down who believe in God all coming down on the same side. It's very much up in the air.
Of course, I mean, we're not going to say that the official the official reason for the Iraq War was like a holy war, but at the same time, you did have like generals like General Boykin. You remember that guy?
Right. Yeah.
Going out there and saying, "Well, we're going to win because our God is bigger."
Right.
Moron.
Or, we had this idea going around that Bush is some sort of Messiah, and he's anointed by God to fix the thing. But that's not so clear. Or the gay rights issue is actually a schism. It's a wedge issue in all sorts of churches, and all these churches are dividing. So instead of thousands of sects, we're going to have 5,000 of sects or something like that. Mm-hmm. So it's crazy. It's crazy. And unfortunately, no sect has any more evidence than any of the others about their righteousness. So they have to assert their righteousness through thuggery and killing. That's the only way that they can win. And that's what they've done traditionally.
And obviously, if they beat the other side to a bloody pulp, then that's only because God was favoring them.
Right. And apparently, I'll have to research this, but apparently all of the statements in the Nicene Creed were because of various people winning various wars. Right, so the winners got to say, this was our creed, and since we won, that must be God's creed. So the fact that we have holy wars for people worshiping the same God tells you all you need to know about religion.
I'm sorry, I try to avoid looking in the chat room, but when I glanced in, the comment was, "I wish I was having sects right now." And
S-E-C-T-S, not S-E-X. Okay. So that's the only thing you need to know is that we have all these people worshiping the same God, wanting to kill each other because they're not doing it the right way, or they think they're having the wrong God. But when they do worship God, we end up with things like the Nazis thing saying God's on our side, and God mit uns, and so the Holy Spirit was supposedly with the Nazis. Even now and today, we have this notion of religious tolerance. Well, we're going to let everybody, worship God the way we want, and so we have these groups that are sabotaging science education, and all the other believers are saying, "Oh, that's nice. Let's go get high on Jesus." They don't care too much, or God wants all unplanned pregnancies to come to term without support. So these are the sorts of things that God is apparently doing under the name of these followers. It just doesn't really add up. So in reality, what we have is we have all of these religions are really just variations of a lie, and they're all competing with each other for people who believe in that lie, and none of them has any real evidence to support them. So they're all just competing with each other out in the public sphere, and you can almost make a mimetic sort of play about it, but I'm not going to go into that. So the behavior of followers gives us no indication that there's a God in charge, right? And that there's any sort of big plan, master plan going on, because they can't even seem to agree on very much. Mm-hmm. So are we done with the technical problem?
I don't know. Have those guys given up on fixing our speaker? How about that phone thing that you were suggesting at the beginning?
Yeah, we can at least finish the call.
At this point, I think we're, ready to break the fourth wall and go ahead and try to come up with some offbeat technical solutions.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's okay.
I have a couple more aspects of this, unless you want to take a little break and go to another thing.
Yeah, I've got some news stories, but I hesitate to bring this one up because, first of all, it was on the nonprofits yesterday, and second of all, we don't really have all the information about this yet. The way it was originally promoted on a blog, the Democracy for America blog, is that a Texas teacher was suspended for being a liberal and an atheist. No, don't call me. For the past few days...
The room back there.
Huh?
Is it... Okay.
It could be the room. Wait. Breaking the fourth wall. That's a text message. This is actually, this is Matt Slick. We were going to, let's see, darn it.
You have a question?
We got an email from Matt Slick, who is an apologist at carm.org, and he was going to call us today, but he's saying the phone is busy right now. Could somebody return this call for me? Just dial this guy back? Or give a return text message? Sorry about this.
Yeah, well, the
but
phone isn't busy,
call.
but
I
we
wish
don't,
he'd left us
we
a
don't have the speaker working.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Russell.
Anyway, okay, so the Texas teacher was suspended for being a liberal and an atheist,
What
at
town
least
is this?
according to this guy. Let's see, this is Richard Mullins, a school teacher in Brookland, Texas. Brookland, Texas is an incredibly conservative area of Texas and only 16 miles up the road from Jasper, the scene of several incidents of racial violence and murder. All right, slanted story. Anyway, Schilling called the principal of this school and got a different story from him, which is that there was something other than the atheism that was brought up, and he was only suspended, not fired. Well, yeah, it says he's suspended, but also it was mentioned that he quit after receiving the suspension.
Oh,
so I'm not sure that this whole story is out yet.
I see.
Let's see.
Well, it's important to read these stories, I think, with a skeptical eye. I mean, it could very well be that this person was persecuted, and these things do happen in small towns.
Right.
But it could be that the person had, personality problems or was too outspoken.
Right, and we don't want to jump to conclusions one way or another just because one of them is probably on our side.
Go ahead, you have another one?
There are people back there furiously working on the speaker problem. In the meantime, I've got a story about President Obama and faith-based initiatives, which I'm not sure I'll take yet.
Yes.
President Obama signed an executive order Thursday establishing a revamped establishing a revamped White House Office of Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships. The move fulfills Obama's campaign promise to expand and tweak a faith-based office founded by President Bush. The office will be led by Joshua Dubois, a 26-year-old Pentecostal minister who headed religious outreach for Obama's Senate office and later his campaign. Obama is expected to name 25 religious and secular leaders to an advisory board, including the Reverend Joel Hunter, senior pastor of Northland Church, a megachurch in Florida, Rabbi David Saperstein, director of the Religious Action Center for Reformed Judaism. Before the signing, now, I noticed that there are no atheists on this commission.
We don't have faith, obviously.
Well, yeah.
Well, atheists have been very concerned about this sort of thing because we're big proponents of church-state separation, and this looks on the surface and has been in the past a definite sort of the government getting involved in promoting religion, promoting various religious-based charities.
And I want to make clear that whether it's George Bush or Barack Obama who's expanding the cooperation of church and state, it's dumb. It doesn't matter who's doing it.
Well, we should be supporting, if we're delegating out work, we should be supporting groups that do the work based on the quality of the work they're doing.
Right. I mean,
and under the Clinton administration,
even if we want to treat faith equally, why should we create a special office of faith-based anything? I mean, what does the faith actually do to benefit the actual social program?
Well, if God actually existed, all these charities wouldn't need a government dole, right?
Right. Could just pray for
money
and fishes.
That's right, loaves and fishes. So they wouldn't need that. So to me, it's like a transparent special interest thing. Let's give money to these guys to keep them happy, so that they vote for me. It's a vote buying mechanism, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, right.
And ironically, there have been ministers who have called it that when it was proposed under the Bush, and one of them got kicked out of the whole thing, basically saying, you're not allowed to say that.
Yeah.
Go away. Another who criticized it was Pat Robertson, and then he turned around and took the money, and now he's a big supporter.
Mm-hmm.
Go figure.
Of course. Now, on the flip side, we've also got group blasting Obama for meeting with atheist lobbyists.
That's right. We'll plant some evil ideas in his head.
Yeah,
those atheists.
Terrible. Whoa, that's a weird effect. You guys are bored with no phone calls, so you're playing with the graphics thing. Oh, okay. So we've got this incredible high-tech thing, which is a cell phone with a speaker in it, and apparently we're jury-rigging that thing to see if we can get this to work. So should I try this? Somebody give me a thumbs up sign.
So do we still have this call on the line?
Well, let's check. Susan, is that still you?
I'm here.
Oh, okay, we hear you.
Okay, good. I can actually hear an echo of my voice.
Thank you so much for being so patient.
No problem. So, I'm enjoying what you've been saying here. I don't want to drag the conversation back to the idea of debating, but I want to sort of mention something that's a little bit different than the idea of actually holding a debate. And sort of mention something that happened to me a few years ago. Way back when I was in high school, I found out that a creationist was going to be coming to my town and giving a talk about why we should teach creationism in schools. So I decided to attend, and I did attend, and most of the talk consisted of this reason, this reason, and this reason why evolution is not true, which was the same sort of nonsense that we hear all the time. And obviously, as an uninvited atheist, and in a situation where this person has a floor, I couldn't just barge in and start arguing with him or anything like that, naturally. I decided that what I could do was, when it came time to ask questions, that I could just ask a question that might in some way cast doubt upon the creationism aspect without
Can you back up a second? And
sure.
say, was this like a school-sponsored event, or was this like some sort of debate or some sort of talk?
It was not a debate. It was. I'm not sure if he was invited by school people in the area, but he was. It was not a debate. He was the only speaker, and he was giving a speech mostly to a sympathetic audience, which consisted of parents, PTA members,
so this was at the high school level?
From the area. I think he was speaking to sort of all levels. It wasn't the students, it was the teachers, and his intent was to try and promote teaching creationism in schools. He called it intelligent design, but
and this is in a public school?
This is
yes, it was for public
because these things matter for church-state separation issues,
yes,
right?
And this is California, not New York, by the way. This is California.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you had some pointed questions for the folks?
Well, actually, I mean, the thing is that you don't actually have to. I mean, if the main issue is keeping creationism out of schools, you don't have to get into the argument of whether creationism is accurate or not. I mean, really what you need to point out is that there are a lot of legal precedents already where they kept trying to bring this stuff, I mean, like in Dover versus, who was it?
Yeah, it's been ruled a number of times that creationism is religion.
Yeah, I mean, they keep
has no place
popping
in
up
school.
like a whack-a-mole game trying to get it instituted in some other place, but I mean, they lose every time. They lose, and it costs the school district a lot of money to have to defend against these lawsuits.
Right. Well, I think all the more reason for those of us who aren't charging money for our time to at least be visible in there. This is probably maybe 7 or 8 years ago, just before the Dover trial. But what I decided to do was when it came time to for audience questions to be asked, I decided I would just ask a question, and the question that I chose to ask was something along the lines of that, one of the aspects of a scientific theory of sciences is that it can be tested by experiment and so on. So I just asked, so what kinds of experiments can or have been done regarding intelligent design? And as we might expect, he answered the question by listing all these supposed proofs of evolution and why they weren't true, and that was it. But the thing that really struck me was that afterwards, when the audience was leaving, and people came up to me and they noted that was a very interesting question that I asked. It was clear that they realized that I was on the other side. But what I just said to them was, did you notice that he didn't even answer my question? And it was kind of thoughtful, and that was it. So I'm just hoping that I maybe planted the seeds of doubt. I don't know, but...
Well, I have two things to say real quick. One is, you just came up with a perfect example of what Russell was just talking about with regard to showmanship, is people know how to dodge these things and know how to make themselves look good when they're not answering the question, or when they're blowing smoke, or when they're lying. Mm-hmm. And it takes a very, very experienced person to nail them and to sort of make it obvious to the people in the audience, because these people know how to do that sort of thing. And the other thing I wanted to say very quickly is...
Right, but you don't necessarily have to be an experienced person, because one of the things is they're not really expecting to be challenged on some things.
That's true, yeah. I don't want to be sending the message not to go and participate, so I wanted to congratulate you for going and doing what you could to raise the issues, and I hope people continue to do that. And go ahead, Russell.
Actually, in this kind of environment, you'll find that there are a lot more sympathetic people to your side than you might expect. It's just that a lot of them are afraid to speak out. Yeah. When I went to the school board hearings in 2003 concerning evolution in textbooks, I got an applause line. It was fun.
Okay.
If you do a small amount of preparation, I think you're likely to receive the kind of response that you got.
Yeah, our group has done some of that here in Texas with the Texas textbook hearings, which are disproportionately important in the United States.
Very important.
Yeah. So congratulations, good for you.
Well, thanks. So I guess I just wanted to sort of comment that perhaps this is one thing that those of us who aren't either experienced or very good at public speaking, but perhaps, as you say, if you prepare for it right and don't get too belligerent, because I was aware when I did this that if I just started arguing, I would simply lose, and I would look bad, make my position look bad.
Yeah.
Well, but it seems like if you do prepare, and if you are willing to just sort of say your piece and then sit down, then it could be a good thing.
Yeah. Well, it's also important to sort of choose your battles the right way. In a situation where you're talking about science education in schools, you obviously want to stay on this topic of science. And although you may be an atheist, or you may disagree with the religious views of the people involved, that's really not the topic at hand. The topic at hand is science education, and so you need to really focus on that. Look up the previous rulings and the court cases. Look up whatever scientific evidence that this side has. Those are things that are very relevant, there's really not much on their side. This argument for creationism, this blind watchmaker, or this watchmaker argument, has been around longer than evolution, and it was part of the ambient environment where Darwin himself grew up in. Right? It's that old, but it has no legs. It has no evidence behind it, no real support. And so it should be a slam dunk. So all you really have to do is bring up those evidences and ask whether these things are falsifiable, whether they have anything going for them, and they won't have it. And that's all you got to do. And that's not very hard. So congratulations, Susan.
Thanks for calling, Susan.
So I don't want to keep you away, because I'm hoping this apologist that you mentioned will call in. So
actually, he has.
Okay. Well then, why are you still talking to me?
Thanks for calling.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. So let's see. I don't know if this is actually a first for the Atheist Experience, but we have like a professional apologist on the line who said he was going to call in. Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Slick of the Christian Apologetics and Research Ministry. Are you there, Matt?
Yes, I am. How are you?
Hi, Matt. I'm very well. I got to apologize for some technical issues in advance. We're having a problem with our speaker, and we're listening to you over a fairly tinny speakerphone on a on a cell phone today.
Right here in front of us.
Hey, no problem. I know how it is.
Did you have a question or a point you wanted to make?
Yeah, how are you? What's up?
Who's talking to who now?
What?
Okay, let's start over, I guess. So who's talking to who?
This is Russell Glasser. I'm the host of the Atheist Experience today, and here with me is Don Baker, my co-host.
Okay, how you guys?
Good.
I'm fine.
All right. Well, yeah, I was doing some work here on my computer, and I saw the email said maybe call in today or on the 16th, and I just thought the time frame was right, but I'd just shoot a call in and see what can happen.
Yeah, sure. So did you have a particular topic, or do we have to come up with something?
Well, I don't know. I love talking to atheists. I love it when they call into my radio show here in Boise, Idaho area, and I have a great time. And usually they'll bring up a topic, and I can talk about lots of stuff, and some things I know well and some things I don't, but, whatever you want.
I didn't prepare a topic for you. I mean, you said that you would like to call in sometime. So when you emailed us earlier, you said that you wanted to, I don't have the email in front of me, but you wanted to examine whether atheism is a consistent worldview or something.
Yeah, I see atheism as being internally inconsistent. I don't think it's rational to hold atheistic viewpoints. I think that once you examine the evidence, that you'll conclude that there must be a God. But that's me.
How would you define atheism?
The active denial of God. There's strong atheism. There's weak atheism. There's agnostic atheism.
We would define atheism as the lack of a belief in God.
All right. Well, let's tackle lack of belief. I got 4 cats. Believe it or not, I have some daughters, and they love cats. We have 4 cats. All of them lack belief in God, so they're all atheists.
Sure.
Okay,
yeah, we'll accept them.
So let me ask you a question then.
But we would make a stronger statement that we've sort of looked at a lot of the God claims, and we just don't find them compelling or convincing. So,
usually,
in a sense, we're kind of a different flavor of atheists in the sense that we're educated.
Right. I'm not sure if you're in the habit of asking callers before you start up with them, what does it mean to you that you're an atheist? I mean, here on this show, we usually try to start each call with something along the lines of, tell me what you believe in and why you believe in it, rather than making an assumption, because I know you'd agree, when somebody says they're a Christian, you can't necessarily jump to the conclusion that the things you've heard about Christianity apply to this person.
That's correct.
So, what do you think?
Well, the position that someone lacks belief in God when they say they're atheists really is not much of a position to have. Atheism is an intellectual position. To say you lack belief in God, the statement, unfortunately, does not distinguish a human being from a rock out in my backyard. So you need more descriptive definition.
Okay. How about we revise the definition to be...
I don't see why we need to revise
the claims of and the evidence of God, and we don't find any merit to it.
Well, I think that's
rocks aren't able to do that, so that kind of satisfies your case, right?
I couldn't hear you too well, sorry. But as far as, usually when an atheist tells me that they don't think the evidence is compelling or sufficient, I don't really think it's an issue with the evidence or the logic. I think it's an issue with the presuppositions that the atheist holds.
Okay. Are you going to tell me what my presuppositions are?
No, but I usually find that an atheist's presuppositions, usually, generically speaking, they have a system of naturalism, evolution, and then they deny God outright. There can be no miraculous, and if you a priori just deny that these things are possible, then how
we're not saying that we deny the existence of God. We're saying that we don't find any evidence for it. Do you have any evidence?
Well, I mean, here's the reason why it's... Let me tell you the reason why in my letter to you I said that atheism can't be properly called a worldview. I do think that atheism is this general non-descriptive term like you called it. In fact, we've received... Are you familiar with the Raelians?
Oh, yes. I've written a whole section on it.
Okay. We got an email one time from the Raelian group saying, "Hey, we're atheists just like you, so you guys should support us." We we didn't.
We don't.
But I mean, it's hard to say that those people aren't atheists because they lack belief in a. I mean, they do in fact lack belief in a God. They just have a bunch of other ridiculous beliefs about aliens, right? So,
well, can I comment about the lack of belief thing?
Sure.
I believe that a person acts according to what they believe, not
Okay.
according to what they don't believe. So if I were to
Right.
offer you a proof for God's existence, what I would expect from you, being an atheist, is for you to attempt to refute the proof. And even if you could not refute the proof, I do not believe you would accept the proof.
I actually would say that you're wrong. If you came up with an irrefutable proof of God, I think both of us here are essentially skeptics, but open-minded skeptics. And the reason that we don't believe in God at this point is because all the arguments that we've heard for God are pretty bad.
Well, you want me to present one for you?
I would love to hear one.
All right. It's not that complicated, but it has to do with what's called the transcendental argument for God's existence. I used it against Edwin Kagan in our debate in April in Pensacola, Florida last year. He was not able to refute it. He was, incidentally, the 2005 Atheist of the Year, according to atheist.org or whatever. And we debated it. I can present the argument to you in a basic form, if you'd like.
Please do.
Okay.
Okay. Let's just start with logic, okay? You know,
Sure.
you guys use logic, right?
Would like to think so sometimes.
Dive right in. Don't hold back.
Okay. I like it when you say you like to think you do, because that's the same thing I say about myself. I think I do. But anyway, logic is based upon transcendentals. It's based upon logical absolutes. For example, the first, second, third law of logic. The first law of logic is the law of identity. Something is what it is and not what it is not. The second law is the law of non-contradiction, which everybody knows about already. And the law of excluded middle is the third law, which says a statement's either true or false. So if I say...
I would say logic, let me respond to that very quickly. I would say logic is a type of model that humans make to reason about the world.
Okay, well, that's a problem, and I was going to get to that. But before I do, let me postulate something. If you have only two possibilities to account for something, and there really are only just two, let's say God and no God as presuppositional worldviews, you only have these two options, and one of them is proven to not be able to account for a phenomenon, then by default, the other one is validated. Right?
No, actually.
Could be that your
Yes,
assumption
it is, actually. If you don't
Right.
agree
It
with that, you don't know
could
logic.
be that if you have one thing that is not able to account for a phenomenon and another thing that is not able to account for a phenomenon, then they might both be wrong.
I said, if there are only two options. If you have both options that
So
cannot
you'd of
count-
course have to
Hold on,
establish
let me
what the
finish.
two options are.
Okay, let me
Okay, we'll
finish.
tentatively agree
If
with
you
you.
have,
Go ahead.
okay, if you have two that cannot account, then by logical necessity there must be third or fourth or fifth. But we have in the case here, God either exists or does not. There
Okay.
aren't any other options there, right?
Go ahead. Yeah,
Sure.
you're right. Keep going.
Okay, so those, logically speaking, those are the only two options.
Okay?
Okay?
Go on.
So if we have an issue...
So you're
and-
saying that if you stump an atheist, then God must exist? Is that how it goes?
No. No, but I
Interesting.
stump atheists.
So in other-
Not two options. There's a third that you've stumped the atheist. But go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Well, I mean, let me ask you something, Matt, before you go on.
Thank you.
Hold on. Can I ask you something before you go on?
Sure.
There was a time when there was no natural explanation understood for the existence of thunder and or lightning. At that point, people hadn't studied the laws of electricity. They hadn't, they hadn't understood weather patterns, and so the conclusion was that lightning was something that was made on Mount Olympus, and Zeus threw it down to Earth. There was no natural explanation for lightning at that time, right? But you wouldn't say that it turned out that the Zeus explanation was actually the right one.
Yeah, so what's that got to do with the issue of logic?
Well, I mean, you're saying that if you can't come up with an explanation that doesn't involve God, then God must exist, right?
No, that's not what I said.
Okay.
I said,
All right,
if
I
you only
maybe
have,
misunderstood what you were saying. Go on.
I said if you only have two possibilities, just two, if there are only...
Yeah, we've agreed with you on that.
Sure,
Can we move
yeah.
on?
And if you only have these two, and one of them is negated by logic necessity, the other one is validated. Now, atheism or theism. You either have God or there is no God. Now, back to the issue of logic. How does an atheist, from his worldview, account for the existence of logical absolutes? Now, let me talk about this just a little bit. Because
Well, I believe Don already said that
No, he did
logic
not.
is descriptive. It's just our way of describing the way the world works.
Okay,
So-
I mean, seriously, if you guys would give me a minute or 2 minutes to finish this, we could actually
Okay.
get somewhere.
Okay,
I mean,
well,
I'm
we're
not
answering
your
your
show, but-
question, so go ahead.
Well, you're not. You're not letting me finish. If I can't present the case, then you're not listening to the evidence.
I'm sorry that it's upsetting you to have
It's not upsetting
this
me.
back and forth in this way, but please go on.
No, it's not upsetting me. I'm just saying if you want to hear the argument, you got to let me present the argument. That's all.
Well, you're building in some assumptions, and we've
Yeah,
sort of learned...
here's the
learned-
problem. If we have an early disagreement on something and then you try to build a case out of the disagreements, then later on we have to move backwards a little bit in order to identify the spot where the disagreement happened. So I'm sorry
I
if
found
we
it to
sound
be-
rude.
Yeah, we found it to be much more efficient to solve those sorts of
I
problems.
do the
very
same
early.
thing. I do the exact same thing in my radio show.
Good.
Okay.
Okay? But I'm just saying that there is an argument. I know what you guys are going to say. I know the arguments the atheists give. I'm just trying to help out here by saying that first of all...
Okay, so you're
I think
saying
logic-
that logic is some woo thing that God had to have created. Is that right?
No,
Is that where you're going?
I did not say that.
Okay, go ahead.
Logic, by its necessity, by its nature, is transcendent. What this means is if you get in a rocket, you go 1 million years at the speed of light, you get out, and you walk around, whatever, the laws of logic are still valid. They do not depend on where you are or when you are. Therefore, they are transcendent in that they transcend space and time. Second, they're absolute. They don't change. Third, they are by nature conceptual. You don't look under a rock to find them. You don't take a picture of them. You can't weigh them. You think them. They are thought. They're products of the mind. They are of the mind by their nature. This is the nature of what's called logical transcendentals. Okay? No problems so far?
Yeah, everything you've said is consistent with the idea that they're models made by humans to reason about the universe.
If
Do you
logic,
agree with me
logic-
that everything you've said is consistent with that?
No, not at all. If the model is, if you want to say, that, and this is what the atheists say, that basically logical absolutes are products of human minds, the problem with that is human minds are different. And what you think is logical and what I think is logical won't always agree. And what
But
we
you
think is
agreed that there's an external world out there and that the senses and that the minds are just basically interpreting the things that come through the senses, right?
Yes.
So in other words, if there's a point of reference for two people, I mean, like, you know, if there's a table here and Don and I are both seeing this table, then essentially the fact that the table is a point of reference basically makes us is what accounts for us having similar experiences.
Yeah, what you're doing is describing the law of identity. Something is what it is and is not what it is not. And you're also
Okay.
doing an epistemological issue with a subcategory of empiricism. How you know things are what they are, and that your senses are the things you trust to interpret reality. And we have to use logic in order to get there, because you guys are doing that as well. You're saying if this, then that, which is logic, deduction. No problem.
Yep. Very good model of the world, and we actually teach that in schools. When
Good.
kids go to school, we actually teach that to them in college-level classes.
The question we have to ask, though, what are the necessary preconditions for transcendental conceptual absolutes. Can an atheist worldview account
I don't
for them?
believe it's transcendental.
Oh,
Can you come up with another culture that's created the exact same thing? And can you come up with why would you've made an assumption
You're begging the question.
that it exists everywhere, and that it's not just something that models reality.
Okay, I'm trying to get
and
past
is a
that.
useful tool to us.
I'm trying to get through that. I'm trying to get to that to tell you.
Okay, please do.
It cannot be the product of human minds, and it cannot be the product of human minds thinking as a tool. And you have to hear me out here. The thing is
It's
this.
a product
that
of the human minds interacting with the reality that we see, right?
When minds are different, your mind is different than my mind. Since the logical absolutes are themselves absolute, they cannot be the product of human minds because human minds are different. What you consider to be logically absolute, I may not. If they are the product of human minds, then they would be the product of human chemical reactions. There would be no reason to trust logic.
But again, they're coming from an external point of reference.
Would you also say that a particular atom is transcendent because it's not a product of the human mind?
Transcendence means that something is not dependent upon space and time for its existence. You guys,
that presupposes yet another model of the world that we might agree on. But you're talking about how models interact. You're not talking about.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. You guys are. I know. I don't mean this. I do not mean this disrespectfully, but you guys haven't done your homework in these areas philosophically. And I would suggest
Come on. You haven't made any interesting points yet. I'll tell you what, I'll let you talk for a minute and you can make an interesting point.
I mean, perhaps you would respect our education if we just listened to you and said, my gosh, that is right.
So smart.
The transcendental argument is absolute proof for God. I'm sorry that this is frustrating you.
Now, what's difficult is actually trying to complete a thought without being interrupted.
Yeah, you're trying to define God into existence.
No, I'm not. You guys
yes, you are.
Now, you guys, what you keep doing is inserting into what I'm saying that which I am not saying. All I'm doing is telling you about the nature of what logical absolutes are. They're not dependent upon space and time. You can't find them under rocks. You don't weigh them.
We
haven't said that you can.
That way. Yes, isn't that wonderful?
Yet they exist.
All of physics is observer independent. Boy, it must be. God must be the observer or something. I don't know. Maybe you can find a way to put God in there.
Therefore, gentlemen, if logic is not dependent upon space and time, and if it is not something you can find under a rock or weigh or freeze, it is not a property of the universe.
Mm-hmm. Logic is not a property of the universe. Okay.
If it were a property of the universe, it could be weighed or measured the way gravity can, refraction, heat differentiation. You guys know this, right?
Yeah. So.
Okay. Now, the nature of the logical absolutes is conceptual. They are also transcendent. They require a transcendent, absolute mind to author them.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
That was an enormous leap. Where did the word mind come in?
Do you ever have a concept without a mind?
You have an external reference without a mind. You remember a minute ago Don asked if an atom is transcendent because it's not dependent on a human mind?
It exists, and things that exist are not dependent upon human minds for their existence can exist independently of the human mind. So it's not an issue of transcendence.
Right. So
you think our thoughts, the fact that we have thoughts, that means that God exists? Is that what you're saying?
I did not say that.
Well, that seems to be what you're saying. You seem to be saying that because we have concepts that exist that are not tangible, that must be because God exists.
That's not what I said at all.
Okay.
I'll say it again. But I'll
because two or three people agree on a concept.
I should let you know we have only 3 minutes left in the show, and while we'd love to keep talking to you, I'm just giving you a time warning.
Okay, thank you. But that's not what I said, though. I said the logical absolutes are themselves transcendent. They are always
I don't
true
believe it's
everywhere.
absolute. I believe it's a model made by humans, and you would need to prove that logic is an absolute, and I don't believe you've done that.
Okay, if you believe that logic is not absolute, logical absolutes are not absolute,
I believe that logic is a wonderful, useful model created by humans and used by humans.
Then I'll offer you a sentence. If logic is not absolute, Blue sleeps faster than Wednesday, and therefore, because you can't think linearly with going hopscotch backwards, I win the debate.
I'm sorry.
I didn't follow all that.
I didn't actually hear what you said.
Could you say that again, please?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, gentlemen, because if you're going to tell me that logic is not absolute, then we have no basis of any rational discourse. If logic depends upon your mind, and depends upon anybody else's mind, or it is relative in that it depends upon some other thing for its validity, then whatever changes that is a necessary precondition for its existence alters the very nature of logic itself. But you will not argue that way, and no one would ever argue that that's the case. Therefore, logic is transcended by nature and is not dependent upon nature or human mind. It is
I think what we've been saying all along is that logic is something that is descriptive and not prescriptive. I mean, essentially what it means is that when two people look at something and see things the same way, it is generalized in a way that is described as logical.
Well, what you're doing is
that doesn't mean that logic is a thing that exists outside of space and time. It just means that it's essentially a way of observing things in a consistent way.
I didn't say it exists outside of space and time. I said it's not dependent upon it for its existence.
Okay, let's get back to your mind thing, Bill. Where did you get to the point where you said that because it's not dependent on space and time, there must be an intelligence outside the universe?
I didn't say there's an intelligence outside the universe either.
Well, I mean, you said basically you said that essential thing. That's where you're going with it, right?
No,
that's what you mean by God, right?
No, it's not what I said, and that wasn't where I was going.
So you don't think God is an intelligence outside the universe?
He's outside and inside.
Okay. I'm sorry, Matt. This has been a great conversation, and I encourage you to call back next week when Matt Dillahunty will be on the air, but we are totally out of time. Thanks for calling.
Can I plug my website?
What?
Can I plug my website?
Oh, yes. Hurry up.
Carm.org. Carm.org. This is on the website. See if you can find it and refute it.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, bye. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thanks to our wonderful crew, and we'll see you again next week. Bye, Don.
Matt read or watch the show on Stealing Credit for God.
Yes.
That I did a couple of weeks ago, because that's exactly what he's doing.
See ya.
You and I have different debate styles.
We do, yes.
We were butting heads a little bit.
Yeah. Are we still on YouTube?
Yeah, you can take calls if you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So let me just glance back through the chat room and see what the reaction was.
Oh, Russell. Oh, Russell. And I only got to half my topic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. It was an interesting
Matt called. We had to stick with him.
No, that's okay. I hope he calls again.
Yeah, right. That was painful, they say. Great job. Kill him. I love you, Russell.
Okay. All right. You got to read that one. We're going to take some calls.
Yes, okay. All right.
We got to have some quiet because
here?
this phone is really tough to hear.
Okay.
Are we gonna?
Apparently we had some feedback problems. Well, due to this thing. Oh, I'm sorry.
Should we try one, or should we give up?
I feel bad. All right. Taking line 1. Hello, are you there? Somebody talk to me.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey.
We can hear you a little bit. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Justin. I'm calling from Dallas, Georgia.
Okay, welcome. What can we tell you?
Huh?
What do you got?
Well, I've got a few things. One of them majorly is talking about the two major logical fallacies that Slick, or whatever his name was, put forth, including a major straw man.
Mm-hmm. What?
And the false dichotomy.
You saying
He
the
did them
last
both in
caller
the
had a
same
straw
line.
man? We're having a little trouble hearing because of the noise. You say the
they
last
got me
caller had a
patched
straw
through.
man?
I can't
Hello?
hear them.
Wait,
Hello?
did they cut our mics?
They've
Can you
got
hear
me
us?
patched through into the main.
Yeah, this isn't working.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. We're not going to be able to take
I
calls
don't-
given
yeah,
the
this isn't
audio
gonna work.
situation. So
Sorry, it was bad
so-
enough during the
yeah,
show.
so we're going to just apologize and let you
They
go.
say our
Just-
mics are good in the chat rooms, but we're having problems with this one caller, so let's try one more.
Okay.
All right?
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Trying
Hello?
again.
Next caller.
Hello?
Are you there?
Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hi, Russell. It's George from New York.
What's up, George?
George?
Killed any
Listen,
zombies lately?
I'm calling with a long, intricate, self-referential argument for the existence of God, and if you interrupt me or question any of the 500 interconnected elements, I'll decide that you're actually suppressing me and running from the truth. How's that?
He was kind of testy, don't you think?
The problem is, even if you had had the patience of saints and let him go through the whole spiel, I think we all knew exactly where he was going.
I mean,
There's
the
nothing new
transcendental
there.
argument, among its other flaws, it's really fucking boring.
You know what it sounded to me like more than anything else? Like a sermon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
have to set it up.
I got the impression, I was saying in my Atheist Experience blog post series that one of the things that theists like in a formal debate is getting like half an hour to talk without being interrupted.
Right.
And the reason they like that is because in that span of time they can spew so much bullshit that you can't
just
possibly get back to it all.
Any debaters know that one of the big tricks is to define the terms as early as possible, because if you can draw the map, you can then fill it in.
Right?
And that's
We
what
could
they
have
try
probably
to do.
done that a little better.
The whole game is you have to say, well, if you agree with this about logic, and you agree with this about the nature of mind, and you agree with this about what faith is and is not, well then, X, Y, Z, I must be right.
Yeah.
And that's the whole game. That's why,
So,
referencing
is there
what you
anything-
gentlemen said earlier, people like Professor Dawkins have to be careful because they go in and they know a great deal about science, and they go in arguing, if I may say, with good faith, but the other side is not doing that. The other side is playing this game. And you have to be savvy to it, or they're going to make you look bad, even though you might actually know more science than they do.
Yeah. I'm kind of...
You're preaching to the choir here, George. Yeah, we know that, and we've seen that. We've seen it live, and we've seen it in a lot of debates, and it's maddening, right? Because you hope if these people had anything good on their side, they wouldn't have to lie. They wouldn't have to use these tricks.
While I
Well,
was kind of insulted by his implication about my education, I was overall pleased that he seemed to be losing his temper.
Well, you have to understand that when these people use the word education, what they actually mean is indoctrination.
Yep.
Yeah.
When they say you don't know philosophy, what they mean is you haven't been properly inculcated in approaching it the way I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's an ad hominem.
And also, I don't mean to be peevish, but, if this God actually existed, Mr. Slick could simply summon him and end the whole thing.
Yeah, well, pretty much. So, regarding that call, is there anything you would have handled differently if you if you had been talking to him?
Feedback. Yeah.
I don't know. You ever get the feeling when you talk to these people, you understand how those SWAT officers feel when they have to talk people down off a ledge?
Right.
I think philosophical arguments
yeah.
on paper.
Did he hit you, ma'am? Yeah, but I love him.
Yeah. Don't jump, sir. You have so much to live for. Just look at it transcendentally.
Yeah.
No, some things work better on paper, and this is one of them. I would like maybe the ACA to take Mr. Slick's argument, take it in toto, and tackle it, and say, kind of like what you're doing with Colson, and say, look, hey, that's trippy. I like that effect. Take it in toto.
That would be good to do with a written version of it. You're right.
Yeah, and go over it and say, okay, Matt. Now you've had all the time in the world, and you've had the preparation that the written word provides us. Here's our problems with this, and boom, just lay it out.
I think Matt's calling.
Good thing to do. Matt's calling. Okay.
I'm sorry. I think it's Matt Dillahunty.
Are those dual Mohammeds?
I'm sorry. Yeah, they're both are. We got two of them.
I just noticed that.
We're going to somehow make these things popular.
Okay.
And
we're still on YouTube, on the live feed, by the way. Do you want me to call you back?
We got two sacred calves.
Hey, where do I get a Muhammad?
We were debating about whether to name the other one or not, because one of them has white on his back. Mushu.
How about
Really? Okay.
Cower
pig, wouldn't it?
Oh, really? Okay. Well.
Okay. Anything else, George?
No, that's it. I got to get back to work, Rap.
Okay. Thanks for calling, man. We
All right.
love hearing from you.
Take care, guys.
We'll talk about that on
All
Wednesday.
right. Take care. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
You want to take one more and quit? Or?
Yeah. No, actually, I think I'm ready to go.
Ready to go? Okay. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. And
all right.
Sayonara. Thanks for
Bye.
calling. Bye. Okay. This